All right, folks, we are going to get started. And I am just going to begin by saying, please extend some grace to those of us who have to do the quick turnaround of negotiating and re-preparing minutes and documents and counters and questions and all of that in a week and still doing our full-time jobs. So like my brain already feels a little fuzzy. So just to kind of be patient with us as we work through this. By the way, I am Karen Taylor and I am the chair of the negotiations committee.
Really want to thank everyone for being here. So it's wonderful to see all the blue.
Michelle Dunn, Secretary.
Julie Reno, Research Chair.
Christine Berg, EM President.
Do you want it?
Chad Olson, Vice President.
Sarah Martin, member rights.
Cam Wingenbach, Business Services.
Ashley Evans, HR.
Kristen Damer, Assistant Superintendent.
Cassidy Bjorklund, School Board.
Dave Marquardt, School Board.
All right. Are we ready to send the minutes, Karen?
Regretfully, no.
Okay.
So on page 4, and I apologize because this is something that I missed until I had the draft in paper in front of me. So under student behavior, teacher safety MOU counter, it says Taylor presented the counter with no additional changes to the district counter revisions from the previous session. And it was in the early section. So in section 1 through 4, there were no changes, but there were changes in under item 5. So just for clarity, that there wasn't change in the early sections. I don't know how significant that is.
Can we just make a note that this references section 1 through 4 and we'll make a change in the document but sign the paper doc?
Okay. Then on page 5, if you look at item number 3 under EM presented the following for compensation. Here it is, that number. It should be 3,701 instead of 3,107.
Okay.
So just that revision.
Which is funny because you changed it and it should have changed with the whole paragraph. So I'm not sure what happened.
Unless there was a later, but I looked at it shortly before we came out and it was still the same way that it was when I printed it. So,
okay.
Yeah. So if we make note of those and those changes can be made.
Okay.
Sign for those. Then you should have a packet of papers from us that Chad put out for you. The top document is a counter for Appendix C, D. And you can go all the way to the third page, the last line on that page. We returned the coach meal compensation. There is some strong feeling about this because of the extended travel that a lot of the coaches are now expected to do. And so the change is that it's coaches that are scheduled for overnight travel outside the district shall be eligible for meal reimbursement in accordance with District Administrative Procedure 412.2, which basically just says people can be reimbursed for food, but not for alcohol. So that's the only change to that counter. Then I have some questions on the workload or caseload limits. And I put my notes on the district original proposal. So that's the one that I'm looking at. And so on that original document, item number 5 was those working as special education teachers or related service providers will be added to Appendix B. Extended contract for 1 week for due process time spent during the year in summer transition work, and that was removed. And then at a later time, or excuse me, at an earlier time in item number 4, we had that conference times would become due process time. And that was changed to say that they, upon teacher request or upon the request of the teacher, they may become due process work time, but the trade time was removed. And so one of the items that was lost in the counter that the district proposed was recognition and compensation of time for the amount of time that special education teachers spend outside their contract time working on due process paperwork. And like that's time that people take away from their families and et cetera. And I know that teachers as a whole have a tendency to work outside contract time, regardless of what your position is. What you do might be different. But most of us don't face the kinds of deadlines that people do who work on due process paperwork. And so sometimes the time that they are working on this is until 3 a.m. when they have to go to work the next day, that sort of thing. So that was something like that compensatory, that compensation in time was missing from the district response. And part of the reason that we wanted that we asked for that, is because special education teachers feel that constant pull between, I have this due process paperwork that needs to be done. The work of a special education teacher for instruction is to develop and deliver specialized instruction so that students who have identified learning disabilities can accelerate their learning, and the goal is for them to catch up and hopefully be dismissed. And we don't have very many dismissals that happen in Moorhead because we don't have teachers with time to develop specialized instruction. And that is also like, if their priority remains get your due process paperwork done in your normal contract time or give up time without compensation, I think that conflict remains unresolved, and that's problematic. So you did mention the possibility of flex time, but then it should be in the flex time MOU. We already TA'd that. There is the 3 hours and 15 minutes, which, you know, a lot of people will say, like, I use that in the first month and a half of school. So it's, so I like, I'm in this, I didn't come with a proposal because I don't know what to do. So, and like what you said at the table last time, I know to be absolutely true that there are some people who say, yes, I want that conference time. I want that conference time to work. I want that conference time as trade time. And then there are just as many people who say, nope, I need to be at conferences. I need to be there. So like, I get that. Like, I'm not sure how to fix this. And we already decided we're going to have one committee for professional development. Is this something that they work on as a team with all of the representatives at the table and like try to figure it out? Like, what is the solution that works for a group of people? So I don't necessarily expect you to have a comeback for that any better than I do, but in my mind, it's something that we haven't resolved. Like it's not resolved here. And I don't know that it was resolved in the first draft, but it still feels like it was something that I heard over and over from people when I went to site visits that we haven't figured out how to address. So.
But I think you touch on the issue that we talked about last time is that you may be able to say, hey, I've done all this due process paperwork. I don't need to be here for conferences on Wednesday. And your supervisor or principal says, absolutely. And, you know, go ahead. But then you have the problem of, I'll use Ashley, who says, nope, got to be here. I need my trade time another time, right? There has to be a level of why we said may, so that there was some flexibility in identifying that with your supervisor, because you can't. It's like the previous language where we said kind of the same thing about conferences, and then suddenly it turned into now I can take that time anytime I wanted, which was never the intention of the language and became problematic, right? So where do you draw the line in allowing the flexibility to do it and then the choice to say no, I got to be here, or and some you don't, because EAS generally, you know, has to be there because of the team teaching.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I know there's team teaching K-12. I know there's other classrooms that look like that too, but that was the one that came up in particular when we talked about conferences.
Okay, so what I hear you saying, and I just want to make sure that I'm not mishearing you, what I hear you saying is that if people have if they have their due process paperwork is all caught up and they don't feel like they need to be present for conferences, they can talk to their supervisor. So the supervisor would be their supervisor for special ed.
It'd have to be the supervisor for special ed. So
Okay.
we could clarify that, or you could present language to state that. But I think it also that's just then says if I choose to be here, you know, I may not get that time other play. I mean, that would be a preference. But
Okay.
I felt like that was the kind of conversation we had last time.
Okay, so then they could have that approved by their supervisor and it wouldn't have to be approved by the building administrator.
No, because generally we've worked on not putting flex time in as a tracking mechanism where possible on those nights, because it just gets to be too much to manage.
Okay, okay. Then the other question, I think I have an idea now, like just to put some clarifying language in there. Thank you for that. The other concern that I had is the concern with I lost my train of thought. Concern with professional development. Concern with professional development. So in the language, it says that the professional development is set for 25-26. And my concern with that is a caution. And I have a member of the continuing ed committee sitting at the table, and I know you and Ashley are super involved with that also. But there was one of the supervisors whose plan for professional development was teachers would have time to work on due process paperwork, and that is not professional development. And people cannot earn continuing ed credits for that.
Right.
And so I think, like in thinking about that, I would just want to make sure that whoever there needs to be someone on that committee, like I feel like who knows the ins and outs and guidelines for professional development to make sure that we don't want our special educators to get to relicensing time and not have the categories of continuing ed hours that they need.
Yeah. And I think when we're thinking of professional development, we're thinking of the plan for the year and making sure that it's beneficial, and that is beneficial in a different way. And I would say that that's an education issue. That's not necessarily that document issue.
Right.
That we could talk about how to address better.
Yeah. So I just think is it a matter of having someone who's a member of that committee or somebody who provides them with that education at the beginning of their work and says, here are the guidelines that make qualifies as professional development. This would not qualify as
We
professional
have a
development.
great handbook.
We do have.
We have a great handbook. And we have lots of people, I think, that could pop in and have those conversations when committees start, when we talk about development. Because I think Ashley could speak to this too. Sometimes we get confusing messages, and we just dealt with this of what is allowed versus what is professional development versus what is lane change eligible. That has been a last 3-week issue. And sometimes it's a department issue, right? One thing means one thing to one person that doesn't mean something else to HR. Okay. And teachers too, so yes.
Anybody else have anything on? Okay. And then the next item that we have back to that packet is the Appendix I and Article 17. And most of this was in the previous proposal. If you look at the second page, we had leave number 7 and 8 until after work group meeting, and that has been struck. And then there's 7 and 8 are there. Sarah feels like a lot of the concerns, issues, irregularities, inconsistencies, et cetera, have kind of been figured out. Then we have item number 9, and I apologize, the numbering is wonky. It should be 9A, not 9-1. But preparation time and reassignment, counselors, social workers, school psychologists will be prep time equal to 60 minutes in K-6 elementary, up to 1 class period or half block in 7-12 secondary. Even if the prep time is not scheduled, those on the teacher master agreement will be compensated for up to 1 preparation period per day for substituting for a colleague when building administration has requested it and the teacher has agreed. And then should be letter B, the above named positions and any other teachers who do not normally have an assigned or scheduled prep time will be eligible for additional payment if they are asked and agree to supervise classes or are reassigned from their normal position to a classroom for any portion of the school day. And then the compensation would be the same as the compensation for splitting. And the reason that we requested that is people love to be able to earn trade time, and it's really feels unfair if there are some people who just don't have that opportunity. So that's in there. What we are also hearing from people who are being asked to move into a reassignment for the day is that if they can just get compensation for 1 hour, because it's really difficult for them to work in a different location for a whole day and not be able to do anything to maintain their normal position in the building where they serve. And so they end up working outside. So that's that one. And then the leave counter, under the Article 38, employees hired on or after July 1st, 2026 are not eligible for the 60-day renewal is struck. I indicated last time that is not something that we feel like we can give up for employees going forward. And then I would like to ask you to make a change. This was literally 3 minutes before we walked out of our caucus room. The team came to consensus on this. So on the second page where it says limits, and you added the language, language was added that people would not be approved for leave if the building was over 5%. And the team would like to strike that language. So those positions not requiring a substitute shall not be included in calculating the site percentage. End sentence. And that, like, we had what I would say kind of a ridiculous amount of discussion about that, because we had talked about, like, is it fair that people can take that when others may not have it be approved? And eventually the team consensus was like, that's a small perk for people who are in that position. So those are the only two changes to that. And there was just a typo change under compensatory trade time. It said Article 7 instead of Article 17, but I know that's something we could just fix in the final draft, but.
You changed yours.
Oh, yes, I did. Thank you. I lied. I missed something. On the table, under 26, 27, for the years worked, 0 to 15 was the typical 2 days, accrual to 5. We changed the years for 3 days to the 16 to 25 years. So at 16 to 25, you'd be eligible for 3, and accumulation to 6, and then 26 plus would be the 4 days and the 7-day accrual. So. Thanks, team.
You have yours, yes? I gave you. Yeah, there should be extras. Okay. Oh, I might. Yeah, I gave Brandon's. Never mind. So first we have a counter for the memorandum of understanding, student behavior and teacher safety. And if we go to B specifically, in your previous counter, we talked about the district emergency response team. And I think it's important to note what that team looks like. We currently don't have it's not a member representative team. It's a where do we go next team, meaning Steve Moore, for example, we may have a 9 o'clock meeting because there's a middle school threat assessment that gets cleared, doesn't move on. Because if it does move on, then it goes to the building emergency response team, really, who should be managing their own building emergencies. Now, I think in conversation with Steve, he and I recognize that we need to continue to work on some of those responses at the building emergency response team, and he and I talked a little bit about that today. But we also talked about the best place potentially to put leadership would be on our health and safety committee, which has recently, we have to meet quarterly by state statute. And so Steve and I talked about, in reality, that has been about, it might be safety of chemistry classrooms and safety of CTE classrooms. Sometimes we have law enforcement there. That's where we talk about first reports of injuries. It's where we talk about all of our workers' comp based information. It's where we talk about indoor air quality, some of that stuff. But what Steve and I talked about today is that is a really good place to talk overarchingly about our emergency response plans and what's gone wrong and what could go better in kind of a planning process, showing the plan there first, what needs to be changed. So without even putting it into the committee, he would like to add Christine as current president as a member of that committee. I think we meet next week. It's a 7 a.m. meeting. Sorry for that, Christine. Generally virtually. So regardless of language, he would like to do that. So we talked about doing that there, but also there is recognition that we continue to have work to do at some of the building emergency response, and sometimes where we fall through the cracks is how communication and who is at that team meeting. What we have done, and I think some of our support staff in the room could speak to that, is really worked in the last, it's been a long process, but I would say year and a half in a focused way to talk about our emergency and our behavioral responses, and making sure that our support staff in those communities then know how to go out to the team for things like, if we have a death or if we have a threat or, what happens next. And that has taken some time to figure out how best to do. And again, I'll say some buildings do it really well. Some buildings continue to need some work. Incidents that result in physical injury to teacher due to student behavior will be reported in summary form to the Health and Safety Committee on a quarterly basis. Generally, we've had board representation on that committee. We would intend to have board representation. We don't have a concern, I think, sharing injuries, but generally we would share them across the board. This is what our SFM, this is what our workers' comp injuries look like. And we do split them by building. So generally we've seen, although I will say, maybe you've seen, maybe we've had an injury that has been more significant. We've generally seen a decrease of injuries throughout the years. Again, whether that's reporting or not, I feel like we've talked about this every year. I remember David Kenyon once asking me who you were supposed to call as I wore the sticker on my name badge. Right. Some of it is reporting. We have to make sure that we're reporting. We have to make sure that we have that data, because that's the best place to track it. So we don't have a concern with the summary data. We would have a concern with monthly. We don't have a concern with quarterly. And it all comes really out of that health and safety. And then the language, what does the summary data include? I believe we adjusted that just slightly, because generally you're going to share the incident, where it happened. Again, we share in quarterly. Sometimes generally we're sharing too is like, what does that look like last year? And again, we can bring that, this not a contractual issue, but we could bring those to meet and confer after they've been shared. That's not a concern. It's a document that's already put together and we can put as a standing item. And then we left the line about district and building administration will make every effort to clearly communicate changes. So there's a lot there, and it's a little bit different shift, but also wanted to show that there's a proactive way that I think that can be done differently. And then I will let Cassidy and Dave start regarding compensation and the conversations that have occurred since the last we met.
Thanks, Kristen. So it was asked of us to bring it to the board if we could change the parameters of the percentage for negotiation. And the board confirmed that they would like us to stay at that 6% parameters for the negotiation session. It was also asked that we talk about changing the rate at which the fund balance, we meet our goal of our fund balance. And while that is not something we can negotiate on during negotiations, we cannot negotiate on policies, the board did confirm that we are going to keep the rate at which it is at, and that is not going to change at this point. Did you want to add something else?
So when at some point I'll say, Cam, I'm going to invite you to this conversation. But when we ran the numbers on the previous settlement, we ran at about 12.125% is what we ran in the costing model. Again, I don't know that Julie and Cam have had the opportunity to meet, but I would encourage to make sure we've got the right numbers on that. But also want to note that over 10 years, the cumulative cost on that approach is 5 to 6 million because, of course, it's a rolling cost. And then wanted to touch on the levy, right? The levy passed so the district could hold steady and not make reductions in the amount of 5 million. And just like you, the school district has rising costs on utilities, transportation, special education cross subsidies individually to the district, and some non-salary areas. The levy enabled us to maintain 40 plus positions, which would have been reduced. And the other thing we need to remember is that taxpayers are charged in 2026, but we don't get that money till 2027. So Cam just included a chart that he uses as we're looking at budgeting out, and I'll let him speak to that. It's an estimate. Oh, it's right here.
So on that chart, I just laid out a 5-year kind of, yep. This chart that I show on here is just taking my budgeted numbers and projecting them forward about 5 years, and focusing on the fund balance percentage, which is currently around 2.76%. And again, these 24-25 amounts are estimates as we haven't finalized our audit yet. And showing the plan forward to get that back up to 12 to 15%, which is policy. And the reason why that's important is, this is in case state aid payments are delayed or things like that, enrollment drops, expenses spikes. It's always good to have that extra, those extra funds that are unassigned that can be used for those types of things. It also helps with our credit rating and lowering our bond interest rates for things like that. So the important thing is this is projecting the budget model that I have is projecting our initial proposal of 6% and how that looks going forward. And that shows that surplus there, and that's the way that we can build that fund balance back up, healthy, fiscally responsible position.
So I think one thing too that has come up is the concern of, and I will say one of our something that gets kind of brought up frequently is federal funding, right? Title funding, how that's going to look, and how we continue to backfill that if that goes away. That's a very real concern. The other thing that we just wanted to show is no one in this room wants to take a 9% increase in benefits, and it affects every employee in this organization. But what I would say is we probably should have taken a 15%. And the only reason we don't is because we've got a really well-managed fund. And our group as a whole is good about claims. They're good about generic pharmacy because people around us are seeing 15s, 20s, even up to 30% in some districts. I think we could speak locally of an employer who had to change their benefits in order to keep it below 20%. And I won't call that employer out, but so we wanted to share that information. Again, some of this is just information. Michelle, I'll share this when we get back. I didn't link it. We still have two plans, the 5,000 and the 6750 deductible that even with the increase are do not cost anything in the paycheck, and that is for both single and married teachers. But we wanted to note that. Stop loss is a big issue. Stop losses are large scale. So if you have significant sickness, illness, or injury, and it covers so that, districts don't have to pay $300, $500, $1 million for a claim. And those are going up significantly. And that is partly due to trend in healthcare right now. So it's information for information purposes, and we will share it.
I just have one question. For that rate, when I was on the committee, I didn't think the 6750 plan was available to teachers because at the time it didn't have an HSA or anything attached to it. Has that changed?
It would be eligible. You couldn't put any HSA money into.
Is it still VIBA eligible or?
We don't, it would be a conversation for NIS to open it up beyond. It would be you wouldn't be able to push money into those accounts, and I'll have to come back with that money, because generally you're correct. Yep.
Julie, any questions?
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Um, what time are you thinking?
Can I ask a query?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
I'm new at
absolutely.
this. So it's not a counter proposal, it's just you're just staying firm at where you were. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Those are the parameters, we can work with it.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify so I knew.
And the other members of the board understand that at that rate, teachers go home with less pay moving forward than they did in the past, and they're okay with that.
I don't think anybody's okay with that. But that is what the budget allows at this point. And every single one of the board members said that we are very grateful for every single person in this room. We're very grateful for the entire district. But we don't have the budget to continue to get a 12% increase.
I think I'll add too, as of right now, we have almost 3% carryover is all. As I help negotiate for 20 other districts, I would never suggest that it's a good zone to be in for a district to be a 3% carryover. So until you get to that 10% roughly, I'd be safe at that. 3% is dangerously low for anyone. So to try to maintain until we get to that amount, I'd be really scared to do it. I think it's for the safety of all the jobs as well, to secure that, make sure that we can continue the staff that we have, which is already, I think, limited and should be more. But until that happens, it's sad that we can't do more at this point. But until we get that carryover higher, hopefully it's within 3 years it'll be that way, or 2 years. But again, no one is, like Cassidy said, looking to try to penalize you for being 30 years. If we appreciate that you've been here 30 years or 25 years, it's amazing. Because we won't be seeing those teachers probably much longer if you get here 25 years and or not. So yes, we appreciate all that you do. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here and it's maybe going, whatever, but it was a good discussion we had as a board as well. But again, we thank you for all the people who live in Moorhead and voted for the mill levy. It was very appreciative and we needed it for sure. But with that, yeah, I think the carryover amount is our biggest concern at this point. So
Is there, and I realize this may not be a question that you can answer right now, but if we are asking teachers to go home with less take home than they have had in the past, will that be universally true for others? Will that be true for the school board? Will that be true for administration? Will that be true for supervisors? Will that be true? Will that be true for the other groups who may have already negotiated? Because like, are they the ones that are going to take the loss the next time because their contract has already been negotiated? Because you're asking us to accept that, but if you are asking us to do that, then I think there should be acknowledgement that that would be a fair ask of others as well.
I don't disagree with you. Personally, are you asking for school board, if like the salary we get? No. But as a family, yes, it will be, because my wife is a social worker in Fargo Public Schools, and she got $200 total income, new increase for this year ahead, which doesn't even go towards her retirement or anything else. So yes, we will be going backwards as a family for this year ahead, because she got totally $200 increase, right? So is it necessarily going to be by the salary year? I'm not sure. We'll decide that in March, I guess, for school board. This compensation, but as a family in whole, yes, we will be going backwards.
I'm just going to ask that we go to caucus because I probably just need to go put my head in a pillow and yell. So, are you thinking like half an hour, or maybe when I'm done yelling? I don't know.
We can back in half an hour. So.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
The one thing, did you have any dates that you could send us potentially?
The group shared them with me. I haven't had an opportunity. I haven't had an opportunity to look
Chad's
at this.
behind again.
I don't have my own dates in there either, so I'm still behind too, to be fair. Yeah, it might be tomorrow before we can come back. Sorry.
やっとモーターのコイルが温まってきたところだぜ。
All right. So we have, I suppose I could have also handed them out as we were sitting here. I don't know that you have yours. We have a counter to C and D. Let you pass those out. Yep. Okay, so the only change we made was under the meal compensation. We adjusted to say coaches scheduled for overnight travel outside the district shall be eligible for meal reimbursement of up to $20 a day if meals are not provided through the hotel or a team meal, and then just identified that alcoholic beverages and other personal expenditures are not subject to reimbursement. We don't state here, of course, that you would have to turn in meal reimbursement, but there's standard practices for that, and we'd have to work through that. But that's our counter to that. C and D.
questions.
My own thoughts, if we just get it overnight sometime. It's 11 o'clock, and what's the difference between 2 hours?
We
We can have that.
Yeah, okay. So you have two items in front of you. One of them is the MOU for student behavior and teacher safety. And there is a small change under the health and safety committee emergency response planning. For committee membership, the union president or designee. We added to that because we all agreed that sometimes 7 a.m. meetings are tough to hit. And so just Christine being able to send someone else to represent, but not being able to, the president not having to be the person who's there.
Would that be an executive team member?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and that would just be, if I have another meeting at 7 or something, or something comes up.
Okay.
Yeah, and the idea would be, I mean, typically with things like this, if she can't go, it would be the vice president. If the vice president can't go,
I haven't seen you at 7 a.m. at a continuing ed meeting in a very long time.
You're welcome.
so
He's
that
standing.
that was the main change to the actual document. But Christine had some. It's kind of a logistics question.
Yeah. Because you had talked about like the reporting and how, things have gone down. My question is, not everything is being reported to workman's comp if it's like a minor thing, like if someone's getting people that they're not reporting if they're getting bruised or if they get a bite that doesn't break the skin. So being able to document that and how to do that, is that a meet and confer item? Is that a different time? Is that a logistics? Is that education? When can we do something like that?
I'm going to let Ashley answer.
Okay.
I would say that even if it's not breaking the skin, it should still be reported to workers' comp. And more education probably has to be done on that. But I know when we're with new hires and that sort of thing, we always say, even if you're in doubt, please report it because what if you're not experiencing, a negative situation from the existing incident, called in just in case, because then we have it documented and on record. So we do want people to be.
Because I know the concern that we hear is, it takes an hour to report it. It takes an hour on the phone with workman's comp just to report the incident.
Okay, that's good feedback for me to know. But we would want it being reported, and I do see quite a bit that come through of those types of situations. So some are being reported, and if they're not all being reported.
So it sounds like we need to have a longer conversation about this.
Yep.
Are log entries included in this? Do you check that for behavior data at all?
Ashley wouldn't check that for behavior data. We wouldn't track injury through that because if an injury happened, we'd ask. It's two different
Right.
mechanisms.
Right.
We'd tell you to call SFM. The other issue I would say is I was once bitten without breaking the skin and it was a very bad injury. So regardless, I would say you don't ever know when the skin is broken for that one in particular, but we see probably more reporting out of paraprofessionals than we do out of the teacher group. I would just say that as a data point. And we could run that data for you tomorrow if as an executive team you wanted to look at some of that and see what's being reported without personally identifiable data.
I think the concern, like to speak to that point, I think unfortunately there are situations where teachers will say, I would spend my whole day on the phone with workers' comp, just reporting one injury after another, and then who gets my work done? Unfortunately, I would equate this on some level to people become accustomed and on some level immune to domestic abuse. This is the way it functions. And I also believe that in some situations, that is happening in our school environments. There are people who are so accustomed to being hit, bit, slapped, kicked, thrown, with chairs thrown at them, etc. And sometimes when you talk to those people, despite the fact that they're the ones that are getting hurt, they still are concerned about protecting the student who is dysregulated. And I guess I don't know if that's an education issue, if it's a staffing issue, if it's like at times I'm concerned for people who are the lone adult in those settings with if a student strikes their cell phone out of their hand, like how do they call for help? And to me, that is another issue that needs to be, like my understanding of the microphone systems at the high school is that they can use the teacher, if the teacher has it, they can use it to locate the teacher. The teacher can push a button if they are in distress. I don't think they have those anywhere except for the high school and the career academy. So, like those, I think are also issues that I don't know that we can write that into an MOU, but it certainly could be the work of that committee.
Well, I think what I would say is we would be open to figuring out how to track those injuries, but from an employer standpoint, that's our mechanism to do it. So I would also say if we were having, if you had someone where it was happening every day, maybe we're not reporting every day, maybe we're trying to figure out how to, because you still have to report those, even if they're smaller injuries throughout the day. So it's probably, yeah, to your point, I think it's a bigger question. We're open to how to do that, but the mechanism from an employer standpoint is that injury hotline. So if it's something else we have, and I don't know how to answer the question about people who, it happens to, and they want to protect the students. And we understand that. That's to your point, not something that I don't know we can capture here.
Yeah. And that, I think that, as you sometimes say is it an education issue? Is it a support issue? So that's that one.
So I think I would just ask my team with that small change. I don't believe we would be opposed to signing this document.
Okay. And should say anybody at the table opposed? No. Okay.
I have one question. So if there are different responsibilities for our building principals regarding informing staff, does that information come through HR? Because sometimes I think we as groups think that we've made progress, but then I've heard in the past, well, we didn't know it's supposed to do it a particular way. Like the reporting.
Yeah, so that kind of goes with 5A, that the data, or excuse me, the item number 5, where the building leadership teams will review practices and document data with their building. And so would the behavior interventionist be included in the building leadership team? I think that's what Bonnie's asking, because at times it's the behavior interventionist, or it's the dean of students, or it's the, but I also think, like, to speak to that, in this document, it says it's not going to be written communication anymore. Like, it's not going to be sent out as an email. It's going to be delivered in person.
Correct. So I think my question to all of us is who then passes that information on to the building principals? Is that an EM?
No, that would be a
good.
district administration. But
Well,
if
that's
we're
what
talking about this,
Yes.
we would review that with district
Okay.
instructional team, which we meet once a month.
That's what I assumed. I think so.
Yep.
Are you okay with?
I think that's human behavior, and we would see that across a lot of different individuals.
Like, what was it again?
Yeah.
Stipend to get or something.
Extracurricular contracts.
That's right.
We did share everything that had been done so far at DIT this week. So they have access to this page and to review.
Did I put the right date on that?
Yeah, okay.
I had the urge to write 12, so.
I know, me too.
um, I think that one's yours.
Okay.
Um, okay, and then did I, for the special education one, if you go to item number 4, I just changed the language upon request of the teacher, scheduled parent-teacher conference times may become due process work time or trade time for special education teachers and related service providers with the approval of their special services supervisor. So that was the change that I made to that one.
Any concerns with that, team? Nope. Okay. All right. We're good with that one?
Okay.
Set that up there.
All right, and we have 1 minute left. And so I guess what I would say is regarding compensation is we have 100 people in this room. We have another near 500 members. And going back to them and saying, we accepted a proposal that means you will go home with less next year than you do this year, is not something that I can do right now. Like I just don't, I don't feel like that. Is something that I can do. And then I guess the other thing I would say is that my understanding of negotiation is that you make an offer and we make a counter and you make a counter and we make a counter and we go back and forth. And I don't view what we received tonight as a counter. It's just a repeat of the same. And in my mind, that's not negotiating in good faith. And that's all I have to say right now. Anybody else?
I mean, with that in mind, is that we're just asking not to go backwards.
Nothing to say.
Nothing else on our end.
Okay. Then I guess we're adjourned, 7:01. Thank you, everybody.